Good evening, everyone. We're going to get started here. Good evening. I'm Dan Bates, and I'm President and CEO of the Greater Hamilton Chamber of Commerce, and we are thrilled that you could join us tonight. We always look forward to this event when we can partner with Miami. We believe that when you go to the ballot box, you should be as informed as possible, and that's what this evening is about. Just a little bit about your surroundings. If you need to use the restrooms, they're over to my left. Through that door. There's bottled water there. If anybody needs a bottled water, please help yourself. And we're going to get started. First of all, I want to introduce our facilitator tonight. An Ohio native, Dr. John Foran holds a bachelor's degree with college honors from the University of Chicago and a PhD in political science from the Johns Hopkins University. Prior to his arrival in Miami, he taught at the University of Maryland, East Carolina University, and the College of William and Mary. He is a specialist in American politics and constitutional law and currently serves as the interim chair of Miami's Department of Justice and Community Studies and serves as the executive director of Miami's Menard Family Center for Democracy. Our facilitator for this evening, Dr. Foran.
All right, good evening. First of all, thank you all for coming out tonight to this event. Let me also thank, first of all, our partners at the Greater Hamilton Chamber of Commerce, John Vaughn here at Miami Hamilton Downtown, and TV Hamilton, who is recording this for playback at a later time. And it's also actually streaming live right now on the TV Hamilton Facebook page, the Journal News Facebook page, and the Chamber Facebook page, as I understand it. So thank you all for coming. Let me explain just briefly the format of tonight's event. So this is not a debate format at all. So essentially what this event is we've invited every certified candidate who's running in a contested race in Butler County for either is for two things. If you're running for the U.S. House of Representatives, the Ohio General Assembly, or the Butler County Commissioners. And so joining us tonight, and so that was an open invitation to folks who are on the ballot for those offices. Joining us tonight, we have 6 candidates, and let me just briefly introduce them. And maybe you could wave when I introduce you. So first is Tom Cook, who is running for the Ohio Senate from the 4th District. Benjamin McCall, who's running for the House, the Ohio House, from the 46th District. Chantal Ragu, who is running for the Butler County Commission. Dr. Vanessa Enoch, who's running for the 8th District of the U.S. House of Representatives. Vanessa Cummings, who's running for the 47th District of the Ohio House. And Tamara Small, who's running for the Butler County Commissioners. And yeah, thank you all for being here. So the format basically is this. Again, it's not a debate. So what we're going to ask each candidate to do, and we'll just ask people to come up alphabetically by last name. Each candidate will have up to 10 minutes to basically introduce themselves and to talk about their values, their vision for the future, essentially anything they would like to convey to the audience watching us online or here in the venue. And after that is finished then, and we'll just sort of go in serial format that way. After that then we will essentially just invite you all to come mingle in a meet and greet sort of way with the candidates. And it's really a chance to ask your questions one-on-one and to get to know them on a personal level. So without further ado, let me go ahead and get us started there. And again, if it's okay to go alphabetically by last name, does that sound right? So Cook is first. So, Mr. Cook, can you come up? And yeah, thank you.
I'm not sure whether it's a good or bad thing that my father changed his name from a K to a C, but here I am. So yes, I am Tom Cook, and I am running for the State Senate seat, District 4, all of Butler County with the exception of Trenton. And we can talk about how Trenton was gerrymandered out of the District of Butler County later on if you want to. The reason I'm running for State Senate is because I want to make a positive difference here in Ohio, and particularly here in Butler County. I moved here 3 years ago after retiring from the federal government, and Ohio is now my adopted home. And when I arrived here, I looked around and I didn't like what I saw. I didn't like how the gerrymandered Republican majority was not listening to the desires and the needs of the people here in Butler County or in the greater Ohio area. So I've always been service-oriented. My father was a cop. He loved being a cop. And I guess that's where I got the public service gene. So I joined the Army right out of high school, did 24 years, then went into the federal service, did another 21. Moved to Ohio, got involved in Kiwanis, started looking around, and I wanted to continue to get involved and help people out, and here I am. My campaign slogan is very simple: put the heart back in Ohio. People over corporations, and that's what we need to do. I do not believe that the current leadership in Columbus is looking after the people. It's all about business as usual. My opponent, George Lang, likes to brag about the fact that Ohio is open for business, and he's all about business, and that's fine. But you've got to make the state a place where people want to come to live, and I don't think that's what's happening. And there are a few examples of that. One example is women's reproductive freedom. Ohio, with 57%, and Butler County, with 51%, voted last year to ensure women had the right to choose and to have dominion over their own bodies. But the leadership in Ohio is trying to change that and make it very difficult for women to actually exercise that, what is now a right under the state constitution. There are 33 laws still on the books that restrict a woman's right to make a choice. And none of them have been challenged by the leadership in Columbus because they want it to go through the courts, and that's not right. And I'll give you just one example. On the books right now, if a woman wants to have an abortion for whatever reason, after she goes to get the abortion, they require her to wait 24 hours before she can get the procedure. Now imagine for a second a woman makes one of the most difficult decisions of her life. She goes to a place to have this procedure, and they tell her, sleep on it and come back tomorrow. We don't even do that when you buy a gun. And we can talk about that later on if you want to. That's just not right. Women have a right to make the decisions over their own bodies, and that's what I want to make sure happens when I'm elected in November. That's just one. Another issue here is our public schools. The Department of Education has now given Ohio a C- in its public school system. Why would you want to move to a state that's got a C- rating? We have what they call EdChoice, school vouchers. I have no problem with people sending their children to private schools, but I don't want to have to use my taxpayer money to pay for it. $860 million in this year will go towards school vouchers, and most of those children are already in those schools. And what has happened? Those schools have raised the tuition accordingly. And another $2 billion of your taxpayer dollars is going for the infrastructure for these private schools. Meanwhile, the public schools across the state are having challenges. Now, I live in Oxford. They don't have enough buses to get the kids to school. If you have a child in an elementary school and you live within 2 miles of that elementary school, you have to drive your child to and from school. Now, if you're working in Cincinnati, how do you do that? With school starting at 7:45 and ending at 3. It's a real burden. We don't bus the kids to the high schools. I don't want 16-year-olds on the roads at 6:30 in the morning in December when they should be driving in a school bus. The state has a responsibility to make sure that the public schools survive, and I want to see the money go, our taxpayer money, go to the public schools rather than the private schools. Again, I have no problem with private schools, but the public schools have to come first. Another issue that's near and dear to my heart is health access. We are 42nd in the nation in infant mortality death. Think about that, 42nd. Now, for the last few months, I've been going around talking to doctors and nurses and finding out why is that? And the answer is simple. The mothers are not healthy. They don't have access to prenatal care, don't have access to postnatal care. I had one pediatrician tell me that young girl comes in, 22nd week of pregnancy, she's in labor. She's smoking in the lobby and she's 350 pounds. Why is that? There's no education for how to deal with pregnancy, because the state is closing these clinics. They're threatening to stop all funding for Planned Parenthood. Where do these young mothers go? The money is there in Ohio. It's got to go to the people that need it. Mental health. Opioid addiction is a mental disease. It is not a crime. These people should not be treated as criminals. They need to be treated. They want the treatment. A lot of these people homeless, for example. A lot of those people need help as well, and we don't have the resources to do that. There are a lot of individual programs out there. A lot of them are really well done by faith-based organizations. There's one right here in Hamilton called Lifeline, where these women drive around and literally talk to people on the street and try to get them the help that they need. They apply for grants, they get some, they don't get others. The money is in Ohio to help these people, and when I'm elected as the state senator, that's what I want to do. Take this money out of the state and bring it down to the people that need this. Hamilton's having a revitalization, and that's great. Middletown wants to have a similar vitalization, but that's going to take money and resources, and the money is there. Now, my opponent, George Lang, wants to cut the state income tax. That's $8 billion in lost revenue. And when I asked him how he's going to make up that $8 billion loss when we have all these programs that need money, his answer is fracking revenue. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't like the idea of the state being required to allow oil companies to come into our public lands, our state parks, and drill for oil and gas. We can't stop them. It's a law. And fracking poisons the ground, it poisons the air, and to be totally candid, we're a net producer of oil in this country. We don't need this in our state parks. There are other ways we can make revenue, but cutting $8 billion is the wrong answer. I want to protect the environment. I want to make sure that we take the money that we already have. $4 billion is sitting in a rainy day fund. It's raining, ladies and gentlemen. We need to make sure that the money comes to the people that need it. Grants for these organizations that are trying to help the people on the streets, get the schools back to snuff. If a public school is failing, don't walk away from the public school, fix the public school, and then worry about helping people get into private schools. And then finally, I'm going to bring this up because it's the third rail right now, and that's guns. I am all for the Second Amendment. People have a right to defend themselves. But the second word of the Second Amendment says well-regulated. I don't want any kind of gun control, but I do want gun regulation. And where I want the gun regulation is in the schools. House Bill 99 was passed 2 years ago by Governor DeWine, where superintendents in public schools have the authorization to allow school staff to carry weapons in the school. Now again, I'm the son of a cop. I spent 25 years in uniform. That's a recipe for disaster. You don't want Mrs. Johnson carrying a weapon. You don't want the vice principal carrying a weapon. They're not trained to do that. They get 3 weekends of training on how to use a weapon by Sheriff Jones, and then they're on their own. That's a recipe for disaster. You can learn how to use a weapon in 3 weekends, but it takes months of training. Take it from one who's been there before you know when to use the weapon. If your school district feels that you need some kind of armed presence in the school, and you don't have the resources for an SRO, then the state needs to provide that, not put a weapon in the hands of a teacher. That's just ludicrous. And when I'm elected as a state senator, one of my first things will be is to rescind House Bill 99, get those weapons out of those schools and get SROs into those schools to protect those kids. So it's probably about the 10 minutes that I had. I was supposed to have only 2. Again, I'm Tom Cook. I want to be your next state senator. I want to put the heart back into Ohio. I want civility, not civil war. My opponent, George Lang, said that if he loses, he wants a civil war. I don't appreciate having a target put on my back. If a man thinks civil war is the way to deal with differences between the Republicans and the Democrats, the man has no business being in office. And I want to replace him, send him back to Westchester. He can run his business, which is basically licensing people with guns in case they shoot somebody, which is something else we'll talk about later on. But I'm going to leave it at that. Again, Tom Cook, I hope I get your vote for State Senate in November. Thank you very much.
All right, again, going alphabetically. So next I would invite Vanessa Cummings to the podium, who is running to represent the 47th District in the Ohio House of Representatives.
Good evening. Good evening. There we go. I'd just like to make sure everybody's here and present and accounted for. I am Vanessa Cummings. I grew up in Oxford, Ohio, and I currently pastor at Payne Chapel AME Church here in Hamilton, Ohio. I've been a community servant just about all of my life. If you ask me why I'm running, I will tell you I'm running because I care about you. I'm running to make a difference. My slogan is, a change is a Cummings. And I say that, amen. I say that because I care about the people. I have a heart for the people. I believe in empowering all people. I believe in making a difference is going to help people and lift up people and make sure the voices of all people are heard. I'm not running to represent myself, I'm running to represent you. I don't think politicians are elected to make decisions for you. They're elected to serve you, listen to you, and represent your voice and your views. And when you vote to do something, the things that you vote to be done are what need to be done. So those are reasons why I'm running. If you ask my main issues, one is health care. We need to assure people can afford health care, but we also need to make sure that people have autonomy over their own bodies. When I go to the doctor and I and my family need to be able to make decisions about my health care. No one should have to go and consult the law or talk to a politician to ask, is it okay if we do a procedure to protect and take care of our patients? We need to make sure that doctors can do their jobs and follow the Hippocratic oath, which they all take, which is to make sure they care for all people, because we are all human beings. We are not commodities, we are not numbers, and we are not people that should be used in order to get votes. We need to make sure that they have the ability to be taken care of, and our decisions are between us and our doctors. I'm also running because I support education. I support public education. I have no problem with you having the choice for academic freedom to decide where you want to send your children, but I don't think we should do it at the risk of defunding public education. Public education is there for all people and all of our children, and they deserve a high-quality education. We need to make sure it's funded fairly, it's funded in a way that's sustainable. Our children have transportation to get to school, our children are safe when they are at school, and that the teachers can teach our children the facts and not an altered story that's been put together by politicians. The curriculum should not be determined by politicians, it should be determined by educators. Those are people trained to do the job. I also believe in the integrity of our vote. We should have fair voting districts. The people in Ohio voted to have fair districts, to un-gerrymander the districts. Many people don't know what gerrymandering is, and most politicians don't explain it. Gerrymandering means we have districts that are set to favor one party over another. We should have districts that are representative of the voting strength of the state, not favoring one party over another. If you look at the candidates here are all in one party. The other party's not here. If you want to be represented, you need to have people who are going to talk to you. You need to have people who are present. You need to have people who are listening to you. You need to have people representing you who are engaged in what you're concerned about, or listening to what you're concerned about, are going to stand up and fight for you, educate you, empower you, represent you, come back, talk to you, let you know what's going on in the State House, let you know about bills that are coming up that are going to be voted on that can impact your community, and they're going to make sure that your voice, your vote, and your concerns are heard, listened to, respected, and uplifted at the State House. That's why I'm running. I want to make sure that we respect the arts in the community. I love art. I think it's a beautiful thing. My opponent says that the arts are demonic. That is not true. I believe that my faith informs what I do and how I do things, but I believe in a separation of church and state. I'm not going to the State House to legislate my beliefs. My opponent and I are both pastors in Hamilton, but that's where our likenesses stop, because she does not believe in separation of church and state, and I do. I believe that we should care about one another. We should uplift one another. We should not demonize the people that we're running to represent. But we should care about them, we should respect them, we should honor them, and we should make sure that their needs are met. So what do I plan to do? I plan to go to Columbus and represent you. Represent your voice. Represent your concerns. Make sure when you vote for something that what you voted that you want done is what we do. Not go and try to undermine it and change it and alter it to fit a political agenda. I believe that when the citizens put together a petition and gather over 700,000 signatures to go on the ballot for an issue, it should be on the ballot. And it should be in plain language, not biased language. It should be in language that everyone can understand in simple terms, not in complicated terms. I believe that we must stand up, speak up, and be represented. That's what I'm running to do. I'm going to keep you informed, I'm going to represent your voices, and most of all, I'm going to be focused on problem solving. I'm not about pointing the finger at someone else. I'm about looking for solutions. If you wonder, will I work across the aisle, just to tell you a little bit about myself, every community where I have pastored, I have established relationships and organizations. When I pastored in Pickaway County, we put together Pickaway County's community observance for Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Day, and we started a Martin Luther King Scholarship, and the students who applied for the scholarships were the speaker for the program. When I pastored in Hardin County, we formed a county-wide organization called Hardin County Talks. And what did we do? We held forums, we held discussions, and we held the candidates forum in the county. People looked to us for guidance and direction, and guess who was on that committee? The chair of the Democratic and the chair of the Republican Party, working together to represent all people. That's the kind of servant you will have with me. So what do I need from you? I need your financial support. I need you to share my voice and my concerns with others, and to lift up my voice and my name and tell people who I am and encourage them to vote for me. I need your vote. If you want a yard sign, I've got them here. If you want to donate, you can do that. If you have more questions, you can see me afterwards. You can also go to my website, supportcummings.org. Most of all, I want you to know that if you want a change in the State House, if you want somebody who's going to lift you up and not tear you down, if you want somebody who's going to respect you and communicate with you, if you want somebody who's passionate about what they're doing and who's running because they want to affect positive change and make a difference in this community, if you want a candidate and a representative who's going to be representative of all people, then you need to vote for me, Vanessa Cummings, candidate for state representative for the 47th House District. And I want you to remember the statement and the phrase, a change is a Cummings. I am your candidate and your future representative in the 47th District. Thank you very much.
All right, next at the podium will be Dr. Vanessa Enoch, who's running to represent the 8th District of Ohio in the U.S. House of Representatives.
First of all, let me thank all of you for being here this evening, and thank you so much, Miami University, for hosting this event this evening. Thank you all at home for tuning in tonight and also being present with us. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Vanessa Enoch, and I am running for the U.S. House of Representatives in the 8th Congressional District. I am also a single mom of 2 beautiful daughters. My oldest daughter is in her 2nd year of law school. My younger daughter is in her second senior year in college, so she's finishing up college at Texas Southern University. And so I am running for Congress because I believe in the power of community. I believe that everyone should have the opportunity to have representatives that listen to you, that care about our needs here at home. And I believe that we have the right to ensure that our rights are protected. We are a community that has been under siege, really, because we've been under siege because our legislators have ignored us. You've heard that from many of the individuals here today, but I want to talk to you about why that's so important this year. This year, what we're facing is something called Project 2021. Anybody in here ever heard of Project 2021? I'm sorry. Oh, exactly. You guys think that it started or that it's going to start in 2025. However, what most of us know is that the plan was already implemented many years ago. And they've only put this manifesto in writing so that all of us could see it. But what that manifesto includes is you giving up your Social Security benefits. If you have been working most of your life, like I have, those are dollars that we all worked for, right? But this manifesto that has been put forth by the right is going to take away your Social Security benefits. They also want to privatize your Medicare. And you know, people have said to me, that's not true. And I've heard people pointing out pages of the 900-page manifesto, 920-page manifesto. I've read it all. And when I first read it, nobody was talking about it. But let me tell you this about that manifesto. It's not hyperbole. This is not a dress rehearsal. The individuals who want to take away your rights, who want to ensure that they take away all of those things that we as American citizens have become accustomed to, they're going to do that on your watch if you allow it. I am the person in the 8th Congressional District who has the opportunity to go to Congress and to fight to ensure that we still have a federal government at the end of this next administration. I am the person who is looking to go to Congress to ensure that women still have the opportunity to have bodily autonomy, that you can determine, you and your doctor can determine what you will do with your own body. I have 5 priorities when I go to Congress. Priority number 1 is empowerment and opportunity. I believe that every individual has the right and deserves the chance to succeed in this country, regardless of their background, regardless of their circumstances. I'm committed to creating policies that will ensure that we have equitable access to education, we have quality health care, and economic opportunities. My opponent has turned away about $3.120 trillion over the last few years through the CHIPS and Science Act and the Infrastructure Development Act. Jobs, over 10,000 jobs that come through both of those acts. Were it up to him, we would not have those jobs coming to Ohio. But he was happy to show up at the ribbon cutting events and smiling and taking credit for acts or money that's come through acts that he voted against. I will fight for you when I go to Congress. I'll ensure justice and equality. I believe it's imperative that we address systemic inequalities and injustices and ensure that our laws protect all citizens equally. I'll fight for civil rights, gender equality, and protection of marginalized communities. Women, my opponent voted against the Violence Against Women's Act. Can you imagine? I will fight for economic growth and sustainability. We must bring good-paying jobs back to Ohio. Our children, my children, when they graduated from high school, they decided to leave Ohio because there were no good jobs in Ohio, because they wanted to go somewhere where it was progressive, where companies wanted to be. Companies left Ohio in droves. We must bring back jobs to Ohio, good-paying jobs, advanced manufacturing back to Ohio. I believe that small businesses must be supported. We must create sustainable jobs and promote economic policies that foster long-term growth and environmental stewardship. I also believe in community and collaboration. True progress is achieved through collaboration and active community engagement. We have gotten to the place where we can't even speak to our neighbors anymore without there being vitriol. We have to get to a place where we are a bipartisan state, where the needs and the desires of all citizens, and we're not that far apart on the issues, are taken into consideration. When you think about immigration, for example, I think the issue of immigration has been, talked about in the media, but what we're not considering in the media is the fact that what would we do if 10 or 15,000 immigrants were dropped off in our cities, without adequate resources to ensure that those citizens, our citizens who are already there, that they have the opportunity to have availability and access to resources, and those immigrants coming into the community would have adequate resources. Those are the kinds of things that weren't considered. I believe that we have to listen to citizens' voices. I also believe that anybody coming into this country, we're a nation of immigrants. Anybody coming into this country has the right to be treated as human beings. The folks that came into Springfield, Ohio, we know that they weren't eating cats and dogs. We also have learned that they are there legally because the corporations asked that they be there, because Springfield, Ohio was dying. These are the kinds of things that we have to be able to talk about. We have to be able to listen to both sides of every issue. We have to have compromise in order to have strong communities and to ensure that all of our needs are taken care of. Again, my name is Vanessa Enoch, and I hope that I will have your vote in November and that you'll go to the polls between now and November and cast your vote, not just for me, but for the people who show up for you and come in and listen to you and come and speak to you about what their intentions are. Thanks again, and I look forward to speaking with anyone who has any questions of me after this event. Thanks again.
All right, thank you. So next up is Benjamin McCall, who is running to represent the 46th District in the Ohio House of Representatives.
How's everybody doing tonight? We've been sitting here for a bit. If you want to stand up real quick, stretch, and then sit right back down. You can. We'll have a chance to talk to everybody as we go through this. My name is Benjamin McCall. I'm running to be state representative for District 46. For anyone who's in here that lives in Liberty Township, Middletown, Monroe, Madison Township, or any of the townships in between, I'm running to represent you. And I think one of the interesting things is that many of us don't necessarily realize the job of an elected official depending on the position or even as a state representative. And one of the two key things as a state representative is that you vote and help create laws for the entire state that also represent your district. And you also help support the capital budget on infrastructure or things and projects that actually help your district and also help the state. So those are the key things that a state representative does, and many elected officials actually tie to. Now, anyone up here and anyone coming in up after me would tell you all these different things around their policy, their positions, and I think it's important to know who the person that you're running or the person that you're trying to elect is. I'd like to thank Miami Regionals for having us all here, for all of you watching that could not be here, but it's just as important to listen and understand who our people are. My name is Benjamin McCall. I have lived in this district half my life. I have 2 kids that go to Lakota schools. I have a wonderful wife that supports me in so many different ways, and it was a mutual decision once we came to the decision to run. Because I think one of the challenges over the last 8 to 16 years is we have a lot of people who are in office and those that are not in office that would like to run that are either afraid, uncomfortable, or why would I even do that? We see the way people treat each other. We see the way people interact. We see that our disagreements become negativity and vitriol, and we can't even disagree without understanding why we disagree. We have very deep disagreements without understanding and having empathy for another side on why they have a valid reason for believing that. So when I ran and I started to think about running, it started out in 2021 really around the idea of our school board, Lakota Schools. I got involved because I didn't really care for the way the election went. Now, regardless of what side you're on, all of us have that feeling around elections. And I felt guilty because I wasn't involved. So I started to get involved. I made calls to a number of different organizations and asked, you know what, I didn't get involved like I should be or should have been, so how can I? How can I show up? How can I be there and understand what's going on? So my start was getting involved in Lakota local schools. So through the 2-3 year period, Since 2021, I've gotten to know the entire school board, teachers, SROs, unions, parents, all throughout the district because I showed up. I was around. If I wasn't at a school board meeting, I was watching a school board meeting. If I wasn't watching, I was at a committee meeting or talking and being around. And that's how I got to know our district. So I got involved with wanting to run for state representative because, I'm not the face of a campaign. I'm a pretty plain guy. If you ask me a question, I'm going to tell you what I think, but before I tell you what I think, I'm going to tell you, here's what people are saying, here are what the facts are, and now here's what my opinion is. Because I think we mix up too much opinion and perspective with what is actually happening, which mixes up a lot of things. So when I got involved and started to decide to run, those were the things that education was a very important deal to me. It was the thing that I wanted to focus on. I think over the last number of years, we have had a model for funding that has not been adequate. And when we have 85 to 90% of K through 12 students being served, taught, loved, cared for in public schools, you don't fix public schools by ignoring public schools. You fix public schools by fixing public schools, not by deserting. If you have your choice on going anywhere you'd like to go, fine. But I think it's a challenge when we have private money or public money going into private institutions, regardless of the institution it is, without regulation. So when we talk about educational dollars, if we talk about schools and how they're failing or surpassing numbers, we need to look at, okay, here are all our ratings. Here's all the information that we know. Do we know that about the other systems that we have, and are we regulated in the same way if it's a public dollar system? A few other things that I think is important is our tax model, as well as ideas around business and workers working together. Because I think we talk about unions and non-unions as if it's not a relationship with businesses. We have a lot of great local, small, and big businesses in the area, and I want businesses to do well. I want business owners to do well while they treat workers well, and while they treat them ethically and treat them the right way. And if that relationship is great, you're doing great. And if that relationship is wrong, then there's something there that needs to be fixed. So education, the relationship between business and workers is very important to me, as well as how we interact with each other. I think it's really interesting how when we elect officials, we all have different varying beliefs and shades on how we believe what we believe. We could talk about abortion. We could talk about educational funding. We could talk about small and big business. But when it comes down to it, what we believe garners towards who we're voting for. And we have thousands of people in Butler County and within my district, 122,000 plus, that all have various shades around what they believe. And then they elect one person to represent them. And then all the other districts elect one person to represent them. And then we have to go up to Columbus and work together. And none of us have to work together. So I think the bottom line is when you elect an official, yes, there's important things and beliefs and perspectives. They have to be open-minded and they have to be able to be flexible so they can collaborate with other individuals. But that we have people that are willing to collaborate. That regardless of my belief, your belief, I have my stances, but you know what? How are we going to get this thing done for all of the people that we represent in our district? Knowing that I've been knocking a lot of doors and there's plenty of people that have slammed their doors in my face or tried to. And I've stopped them, I handed them the card. I understand you may not support me, you may not like my party, but there's various shades in every party, and I'm sure there's plenty of people that you like and dislike in your own party. So we need to understand the person that's running and also understand that, you know what, you may not want to vote for me, you may not want me in office, but if I win, I'm still your state rep. I'm still your state rep, and I'm here because I want to listen to you. I want to understand what you're going through, what you're facing. Because if all I do is represent my own party, if all I do is represent my own ideology, my own beliefs, I'm doing a disservice to this entire district. I'm doing a disservice to every single one in this room. And we have to be able to be willing to listen to each other. Because if the main reason we have the problems we have is because we're not willing to listen to each other and also to literally go up to people we vehemently disagree with and say, help me understand why you believe in this position, because I don't see it. I don't see your side, but I want to understand because maybe there's some information you have that I don't have, and I don't want to be wrong. I want to understand what's right, what your right is, and then we can have a civil conversation versus you're just wrong. And that's the problem with our politics. That's the problem with Columbus. That's the problem with the supermajority on any side. And that's one of the main reasons I'm running, is because we need people that are willing to work with each other, regardless of what side. We got to start talking to each other. So some final things in knocking doors, in my kids, and a personal story in regards to reproductive health. I believe in reproductive health care. I am pro-life and pro-choice, and anybody in this room, your head's probably exploding. But I have certain beliefs. And one of the reasons I believe in a woman's right to choose and reproductive rights is I have 2 sons. I have 2 sons, and my wife had preeclampsia in both of them. And we had a hard conversation during my first son's birth that literally within the month that she was in the hospital, she said, Ben, you may have to make a decision. And there was a point where I could have lost my wife and my child. I had to make a decision, and no one should be in that position. Finally, things were okay. We had our second son. She had preeclampsia during one. Wasn't as bad as the first one. But in between those 2, I was supposed to have a daughter. And at 20 weeks, roughly around that time, she was stillborn. And it was our second visit, and it was to the point where the baby wasn't going to pass. It was stillborn, and she would have had to carry that baby till term. And she would have died. So in those situations, for those strong-held beliefs around this idea and issue 1, I think we need to understand the whys. It's not just a belief, and it's not just wrong. There's a reason for the procedure. There's a reason why people make those decisions, and there's a reason why we need to listen to why people make those decisions and allow those decisions to stay in the home and between their healthcare professional. I thank you all. I'm Benjamin McCall. You can go to McCallforohio.com, and I'd love to talk to you if you're in the district or even outside of the district to hear some of those perspectives and to have a civil conversation. Thank you. Have a good one.
All right, thank you. So next is Chantel Ragu, who's running to serve as a Butler County Commissioner.
Thank you to everyone for being here, and thank you, John, for organizing, and Dan for being here. This is upsetting, right? The fact that my opponent doesn't have enough respect to show up tonight is disrespectful to the people in the room. It's disrespectful to the people who prepared and want to actually engage with the voters. And John knows when he backed out of the county commissioner debate that should be on Thursday, I begged, I was like, can I find a different time? Can I find the venue? I would have done everything to make you be able to see the 2 of us together. The other reason why I'm upset is that I don't like saying things behind people's back that I wouldn't say to their face. So I'm a little upset that he's not here to hear this whole spiel, but hopefully he'll be watching at home. But it's a good example of the amount of work that possibly is not happening in the commissioner seat that we would like it to happen. So my name is Chantel Ragu, and I am a veterinarian, and I'm a small business owner with my husband. I have to point him out, Chris Ray. We have been together for 16 years. He is the reason why I'm in Southwest Ohio. We fell in love in vet school basically day 1. I liked you from day 1. And then that is why we're here. My husband's family is 4 generations deep in Oxford, and I see different generations scattered around the room. And so it has been the place that we have settled down in and where we threw down roots. So I realize that if this is where we're going to live for the rest of our life, I am going to do my part to serve the community and make it as good as I can make it. So I was first elected to city council in 2017. I was re-elected in 2021, and I have been serving as vice mayor since that time. I am running for a county commissioner because a Republican asked me to run. And I sat on it for about 8 months, and I thought about it, and I looked into what the county commissioner should be doing. And I was really pissed off because I look at the work that I'm doing from a city council perspective. I talk to other people in city council around the county, and they're not getting any help from the commissioners. They barely know who they are. I would venture that a lot of people in this room, you're highly engaged. A lot of people I talk to do not know who my opponent is. I am running against Don Dixon. And so I'm running because a Republican asked me to run, but I'm working my butt off to win this campaign because of the people who work in the county building that are literally begging with tears in their eyes, please win. I don't know if I can take this much longer. They are being worked to the bone. I see people nodding because they have experience. They are being worked to the bone. There are layoffs. They are so inefficient, they can't even do their job. It is a toxic work environment. My opponent does not show up to work, does not care about the community, and we deserve better. It is a $500 million budget. Let that sink in. Every year, the county has $500 million to invest back into us, right? And so we can see some of that investment in certain pockets of the county, certainly not in Middletown, right? Certainly not in other places. So we need to make sure that we are investing in the whole county and not just certain parts. And the important things to know is that we know that a really important project is coming down the pipeline, right? We know that does anyone live in Liberty Township? Raise your hand. Some of us, you know about the Milliken Road interchange, right? So that is something that the county is about to invest millions of dollars in this interchange. It's going to be worth hundreds of millions of dollars in investment. My opponent owns 4 parcels of land along Milliken Road. For a long time, he was participating in conversations about Milliken Road until it was pointed out that that is a major conflict of interest. We don't need that crap in our county. We need someone who does not have a conflict of interest, who is not doing this for personal gain, and is working for the whole county and not just parts of it or the parts that benefit themselves. And during my time on City Council, I've been immensely proud of the work that we've done. I'll give you a very stark example of the differences between the two of us. During COVID, the federal government was bringing millions of dollars to invest into communities because we were all struggling, right? Our small businesses were struggling. Everyone was just underwater, basically. My opponent wanted to turn the money away, said, Butler County doesn't need it. We're fine. What a waste of money. Taxpayer money, made this big stink about us wasting taxpayer money. On the backside, he accepted $3.1 million in PPP loans for his own personal business. $3.1 million. You say something, you better do that at the same time. Don't be two-faced. What we did in Oxford for our COVID money that we got from the federal government, we ended up buying land so that we could partner with Habitat for Humanity so we can build affordable housing for first-time home buyers. We are working on getting rid of our lead pipes so we can have clean water to every single house. I spearheaded a project so we can have forgivable loans so we can have more childcare. I believe that we need to have an economy that works for all of us and for all of Butler County, not just parts of the county. And that means having a really strong infrastructure that supports those workers and that economy. We need housing options for everybody. We need affordable childcare. Those are things that we are working on in Oxford that we should be doing at the county. And if my opponent can't even show up for an hour and a half, and you're watching, everybody's watching. What is happening when people are not watching, right? So I'm asking you to look into us. Just first of all, Google a little bit about them because you probably don't know a ton. But just Google a little bit, learn about it, talk to your neighbors, and realize that you actually, for the first time in almost 20 years, have a choice. My opponent has been sitting in this seat for almost 20 years running unopposed. Actually, he's been in elected office for over 40 years, in large part running unopposed. So you have a choice. I am ready to work, and I am ready to work for the whole county. So thank you so much for your time and for being here.
All right, thank you. And next up, and this is the last of our candidates, is Tamara Small, who's also running for Butler County Commissioner.
Thank you.
Last but not least. All right. Good evening, everyone. I guess everyone's hyped up by now, right? Thank you, host and co-host, for tonight's forum. I'm Dr. Tamara Small, and like many of you, I'm committed to the future of Butler County. Our county is facing some serious challenges that can no longer be ignored by the current commissioners. We have a problem with access to healthcare services, both physical and mental health care services. We have an issue with an uptick in violence in our communities and in our schools. And we also have an issue with the economy. So we have economic instability right now here in Butler County. I'm running for Butler County Commissioner because I believe in the power of public service to create positive change. And that's what we need right now, to create positive change. And I'm also focused on creating jobs, protecting small businesses that are currently here in Butler County, and also attracting more small businesses here in Butler County. I'm focused on access to mental health care services and also physical health care services, especially when you talk about women's rights, women's reproductive rights, fertility, all of it. We need access to care, and we need safe access to care. And then lastly, let me talk about our schools and our communities and an uptick in violence. We need to do something, and we need to do something now. It can no longer wait. We have gun threats in our schools. We have kids talking about active shooter drills. I mean, it's imminent. If it's happening around the country, it'll happen here in Butler County. And we've already had a few threats in our schools here in Butler County. In the community, there's been an uptick in gun violence. We need to do something about it. As a community, we need to pull together and address the situation instead of not talking about it and hoping that it'll go away, because it won't. Violence never goes away, it just gets worse. I want everyone who lives in Butler County, all the Butler County residents, to know what financial security feels like, whether that's you being able to pay your bills or simply put food on the table. I want our kids to go to school without the fear of gun violence. You know, I grew up poor, and I know what it feels like to wonder where your next meal is gonna come from. I know what it feels like to wonder if mom and dad can make rent. I know what it feels like when you can't even access mental health care services in your own community, which I've experienced here in Butler County, and I think it's a shame. So we need to act. We need compassionate leadership. We need leadership that cares about our needs and our wants in order for us to build a better Butler County, and we can do this together. We could overcome all these challenges together. You know, as a nurse practitioner, a small business owner, and also a national committee member for the CDC and an educator, I've developed policies. I've sat on committees. I've managed budgets. And I've worked with community leaders and experts to improve public health and safety, all equipping me to do the job to be your next county commissioner. So I ask each and every one of you and everyone watching, think big and vote Dr. Small. Let's hear it.
All right, so that concludes the candidate statements part of the evening. So first of all, let me, on behalf of the university, let me first of all thank Dan Bates and the Greater Hamilton Chamber of Commerce for co-sponsoring this. Thank you to TV Hamilton. And is Maggie, where are you, Maggie? Maggie Simpson, who's the coordinator at the Menard Family Center for Democracy at the university too, who's done a whole lot of work in putting this together. So thank you, Maggie. And thank you to the candidates. And also thank you to everyone here who's showed up on a beautiful night to sort of participate in community affairs and learn about candidates, that kind of thing. So without further ado, let me bring us to a close for this part of it, but I would invite, this is the meet and greet part of the program, essentially. It's an opportunity for folks here to come up and talk one-on-one, not only with our candidates, we have some other community leaders and public officials here in the audience as well. So please take the opportunity to have a conversation and talk to your public officials and leaders in the community. And with that said, we'll kind of reconvene in an informal kind of way. So, and with that, have a good evening.